Here. We're not recording. Oh my God. All right, so let's just start off. We're here with Indira Cesarine. I call you the boss of New York City. I have to read this because there's no way to memorize it. Triple major, French, art history, women's studies, multidisciplinary artist, both photography, paint, printmaking, sculpture. Your stuff's been featured in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, at the Cannes Film Festival, Art Basel, Rockefeller Center for the official Fabergé Big Egg Hunt. And you do two other little things. You run a whole magazine that you started, editor-in-chief of Untitled magazine, and you also have, I guess, a side project, a New York City gallery, the Untitled Space. Do you ever sleep?
That's a good question. I do, actually. I try to get at least 8 hours a day. I mean, honestly, it's like one of those rules I have to not deprive myself of sleep.
Okay, stay efficient and keep doing it, because otherwise, I mean, you're doing like military level of stuff. All right, let's just jump right into it. Can the art world save women, and can it also save maybe the whole world?
Can the art world save women and the whole world? I mean, that's putting a lot of pressure on the art world.
Yeah, yeah.
um, I think the art world is a great source of inspiration. I think that it keeps us all sort of alive. It keeps us in touch with our humanity. It keeps us thinking. I don't know if it's necessarily going to save anything or anybody, but it definitely, aside from perhaps saving the human morale, giving us moments of reprieve and inspiration in darkness, when we're going through something like what we're doing now with the quarantine and COVID-19 shutdowns, including all the art galleries, by the way. It can be a very depressing, dark time for a lot of people to be stuck at home 24/7, and often maybe not even necessarily with people they really want to be around all the time, etc. So, not everybody's living conditions are that favorable. So, it is one of those things that art can be a sort of light at the end of the dark tunnel to give you something, even if you're not an artist, just to art therapy, just to kind of be creative and let yourself be a bit inspired for a minute. But I don't think it's necessarily going to save the world. That's a bit too
What
sweeping.
you've done, you have used it to begin a movement for the dark times, not necessarily the pandemic, but a political climate that is, just to put it nicely, unfavorable to women, or actually totally against women and wants to bury them and put them back in the Stone Age. So you've used it with so many things at your gallery to help with feminism, which is the F word. What was it with yeah, the F word, feminism.
F word, feminism and art. That was the title of one of my first feminist shows.
Incredible. So tell me, like, the purpose behind something like that.
I mean, honestly, through my many years of experience as an artist and photographer, I was very inspired to sort of start channeling my energy into, empowering other women. When I launched Untitled Space Gallery, there really weren't any art galleries out there that only represented female artists. There were only nonprofit sort of like platforms and some sort of female collectives, but overall feminism was kind of a bad word in 2015. I mean, people weren't really even, a lot of artists I remember talking to at the time didn't even want to identify them or identify themselves as a feminist. They felt like it had negative repercussions, etc. And obviously all that has changed significantly over the past few years. We've seen a significant amount of women finally coming forward through things like the Women's March, through once Trump got elected, obviously a lot of women rallied together. Aside from that, the Me Too movement has really put to the forefront the patriarchy and misogyny that exists in culture and how women have been often repressed, suppressed, abused. And at the end of the day, all of these things sort of have come together. We're now, I think it definitely is a much bigger movement. And I kind of started with my art gallery promoting feminist art before it was really like a thing and in contemporary culture.
But for you,
For me, it was really a matter of,
purpose. It wasn't a novelty.
sorry?
It wasn't a novelty with you. This was a purpose to drive a movement. This was not.
Yeah, I mean, when I started the gallery, I didn't think, oh, I'm driving a movement or I'm starting a movement. It was really a question of just following my own interests and passion. So I had, you know, many challenges in my career as a photographer, and photography is very, very male dominated, and art as well, same thing. You know, we're talking 10%, 13% women representation in those markets. And at the end of the day, I just recall wanting to do an issue for the Untitled magazine. Back in 2015, we launched our Girl Power issue, which was an entire 300-something page issue of the magazine, our print edition, that was all female produced. So I only used female photographers, female writers, female editors, female, talent, everything, all the people we interviewed, etc. So that was like a really, really big project. I spent about a year producing the Girl Power issue, because we only do, the print issues a couple times a year. And that one I wanted to really focus on doing something special. And for the launch of that issue, in celebration of the Girl Power issue, I did my first feminist exhibit, which was the F word, feminism in art, which was like celebrating, female artists. And I invited 20 visual artists to exhibit their artwork for an event in celebration of the launch of the Girl Power issue. And that was really the first all-female exhibit that I had done. I had done previous exhibits in collaboration with magazine, and I had exhibited myself for many years as an artist, but never like a feminist show. And that actually got an incredible response. And I was like blown away also by just the incredibly powerful voices of so many of the women and the things that they had to say. So that was kind of the beginning of,
the press loved it too,
of a whole new direction in my life. Yeah, that was, it kind of, I just I was so inspired after that. I really threw myself into launching the gallery and continuing with that path.
Well, given the all-female magazine and all-female exhibit, you're definitely on the FBI watch list now. But quick things. There's so many things to discuss. The perception of women about a powerful woman like yourself. You're probably nasty, angry. I don't like to say the full word, a bitch. And then also, if you're sexual and you're very attractive and you're sexualized, then you become objectified. Given the male mind and the way, especially the climate today, politically, and the people in charge, how can a woman ever get angry with every reason to be angry, or to portray herself as a sexual being without being objectified, when the people who are doing the objectification and judging you as a nasty, angry bitch, their mindset is Stone Age and is generational? How can you combat that? Long question, sorry, I just ranted. But
yeah, I mean, I think what I'm hearing from a lot of the words that you're saying is a lot of gender stereotyping, straight away. And I think it's really unfortunate that strong women are often positioned as bitches, which I'm going to say the word. It is what it is. Like, this is conditioning. This is what has been taught to us since we were children, and these are generational patterns that have been passed on from one generation to the next. That strong women need to be repressed. That women that are strong are bad. They're bitches. They are probably bad in bed. I don't really know. Who knows? People come up with all kinds of stuff. But at the end of the day, our society definitely projects the idea of the ideal woman. Historically, has always been a feminine woman who is appeasing and who makes everybody happy and who smiles and makes people comfortable. And, I think people are so used to seeing men being in the role of running the show. And it's totally okay for a man to say, no, I don't like how this has been achieved. The workflow needs to be adjusted in order for there to be more, whatever it is, to have more profits, or, when you're running a business. If a woman starts to speak like that, often people immediately say, oh, she's just being really difficult. You know, why don't you take it easy, relax, smile a little bit more, you know?
Hysterical is a very nice word that's used a lot.
What?
She's getting hysterical. She hates men. Forget
Yes,
it. Put her down.
exactly. I mean, I think these are all stereotypes. It is one of the things that I address very like closely in my work as an artist and also with my exhibits, is sort of trying to address and break gender stereotypes, stereotyping in general at all. I think, unfortunately, it is very much part of the culture we live in. Often people are not even aware when they're doing it. It's been so conditioned so deeply, people don't even know where the, you know, lies begin and the truth starts. It's, you know, people are just sort of living in this, you know, like conditioned reality. I mean, I hate to say it, but a lot of people are brainwashed by the culture we live in.
Reality. And then
Yeah.
the media perpetuates it because that sells to their base. So you have to have that continuation because women are bad, women are this, or Mexicans did that, or Muslims did this. It sells advertising, and that's
Yeah, no, it is. And it is, a lot of it is enforced with media, press, fake news, God knows what. I mean, it is, you know, I mean, if you look at it, you know, for a long time as a photographer, you know, I felt it was really important, even though it was a constant challenge to keep working. I was very dedicated to having a female voice as a photographer, of photographing women being strong and beautiful. I was very picky about my casting, about the representation of women in my images. They were always very strong with a lot of eye contact. They looked intelligent. Even if they weren't educated women, I made them look confident and strong in my photographs. And I felt like it was really important to have that image of women out there in fashion and lifestyle magazines, because most of the women we were seeing projected and displayed in those kind of magazines were the opposite. And I often got criticized, you know, when I would go to meetings and appointments, particularly in the American market, they would always say, oh, your women are too strong. And, you know, and you do a photo shoot and they would pick that one photo where the model was like looking down and looking soft, instead of like picking the shots where she was strong and had a direct gaze and was maybe a little bit more confrontational. But in any case, you know, I felt it was really important to be able to depict strong women in my work. And I found in Europe, they were far more open to that type of representation. In America, it was a much bigger challenge. And at the end of the day, it was usually other female creative directors and art directors that booked me for jobs in the United States that understood what I was trying to do, or that just liked that work because they were confident and strong women themselves, and they, you know, related to that. Like Cosmo used to love to book me for stuff because Cosmo is that woman, right? It's kind of amusing when I look back and see the clients that used to book me for stuff, you know, in America versus in Europe. But at the end of the day, you know, these are things, the image of women has been sort of shoved down our throat from like the day we're born. We see images of women and how they're supposed to look, and how they're supposed to behave, and all of those things. I mean, you know, you can't just like assume that that is, you know, like, I mean, it's up to you to question those things. It's up to you to say, maybe that's actually not the truth. That's just what we're being told, you know?
The female feminist matrix. It got you in a feminism matrix. Tell us the statement that was told to you by one of the bookers or casting people about you not having a body part, so you're going to work half as much.
You know, this was about, I was interviewed for, I think in my interview with Forbes magazine, they mentioned this quote. And honestly, I was looking at agents in New York. This was when I was still working full-time as a photographer, and I was based between London, Paris, and New York, but mainly Europe, because like I said, I got a lot more work over there. And at the time, I was shooting coverage of Marie Claire. I was shooting for British Vogue, French Vogue, French Glamour. I mean, like major campaigns for a lot of big brands, you know. I mean, I was working back to back in Europe, and I tried to get an agent in New York, and I went around to see people. A lot of people wouldn't even take appointments with me, but a few appointments I did get, they were often, you know, rather unreceptive to the whole idea of it being a female photographer. And
Your portfolio of covers of the biggest magazines in the world, even with that portfolio, they still would pass you.
oh yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I had a really hard time getting a agent in New York. I had a really good agent for a while, and that, you know, like I said, people felt my work was too strong for the American market. The women that I depicted, they felt looked too powerful or aggressive. I don't know. I mean, I like beautiful, strong women, and that was what I was depicting in my artwork and images.
That's
In
threatening
any
to the
case,
male mind. They don't want
sorry?
to threaten. That's threatening to the male mind. You can't have
Yeah.
women. It's one thing to have to control them, but then in print, it's like, my God, those strong women are everywhere.
Exactly. So yeah, that quote that I recall, you know, basically an agent said to me, the fact that you don't have a penis, in fact, more than 50% of our clients won't work with you. So it's not worth it for us to take on a female photographer, because we just won't be able to get you work. And that was like point blank what they said to me. Now, this was 10 years ago. And it is, I think times have changed a little bit now. There is a movement happening with clients across the board and in the art and fashion and all creative industries to give more female creatives a chance to hire more female photographers, directors, you know, whatever it is.
And the crazy thing,
but in any case,
they have been extremely successful. Like when you're saying female directors in Hollywood, which was just taboo, forget it, get them out of there. They're winning Oscars and making, you know, like Hurt Locker. She beat James Cameron. Boy, that must have been nice. Ex-husband to you, I got the Oscar. These women kill it, but they were suppressed. I just don't understand how.
Well, a lot of the female directors were even getting on, you know, having Oscar-winning movies, and or having extremely successful movies financially, and then having a really hard time getting booked on future projects. Like, despite those huge, like, sort of incredible achievements, they still were having a hard time getting on board with new projects. And that is one of those things. Like, it doesn't even matter how good your work is. It's a system that we're fighting against. Like, that was one of the biggest things I had to realize for myself, is I had to stop taking it personally, because I used to take it really personally when I didn't get work. And I finally realized it's not me, it's the system. Like, I can't, and unless I create a new system, there is just no room in our current system for somebody like me. It's just not, or whatever room there is, it's like you've got to squeeze through it and bang on your head against a brick wall to get it. You know, there was no easy system in place for women like me to get work, and I had to create my own. And I just decided one day I'm going to make and create my own platform that promotes women creatives, that has room for female photographers and female artists, because nobody else is going to give me these opportunities unless I make them myself. And that was really a question of, you know, after 15 years of living and working abroad and being sick and tired of having to get on an airplane to get work, I really just wanted to be able to live in the United States, in America, where I'm from, and get work at home and not have to go to foreign countries to get work, which was what I went through for over 15 years.
Yeah, that sounds fair. Good work, America. Quick thing with the magazine. I always loved the title of the magazine and the gallery. Where did that come from, Untitled? Was that something you just said, you know what? Untitled is perfect.
You know, when I first launched Untitled, I was inspired by like a lot of different things. It was, you know, a direct sort of reference to the untitled work of art, you know, something that is difficult to put your finger on. It's special, it's different, but it's, you know, you can't even name it. It's kind of has this esoteric quality to it that's just, you know, very unique. My very first publication that I launched was called 4X Magazine. It was XXXX 4Xs. And that was a video art fashion film publication. It was online. And it was like a sort of experiential animated online production that, you know, you would go on, and we did 30 original short films per issue that we produced with a variety of contributors. And 4X, basically the idea of the X's was really the Untitled magazine. Like the XXXX was a placeholder for like, we don't know what to call it. Let's just put X's for now. And like, you know, and it was also all about like collaboration, people working together, combining forces, multiplying their energies and creative abilities together. And, you know, I remember I was talking with a woman who was a curator, and I was telling her about 4X magazine, and she's like, yeah, absolutely. Like, it's the Untitled magazine. And the minute that she said that, I knew that, like, you know, I had to add that somehow into our whole sort of branding. And because it was sort of like what I wanted to say, but was kind of maybe not finding the right words, and exactly why it's called Untitled. It's difficult to put into words. It's like, you know, that special thing that's hard to describe and hard to categorize, and, you know, just very unique.
And everyone has a different interpretation. They would have their own way of seeing it, their own way of titling it. So you know what? Everybody collectively, it's Untitled. Now I want to address one thing. Something that stands in your way might be what I'm looking at right now. I've been to your gallery. I've seen the amazing things, but you might be too pretty, too successful, too smart, too educated, and also too nice in the sense that they don't even want you to be nice. And that becomes the BITCH with the competitiveness and the jealousy. How do you fight that?
Honestly, I mean, it is one of the things that, as a feminist myself, I have always sort of fought against the fact that many people, particularly a lot of women, are raised to be competitive with each other. From like day one, they're competing for attention, competing to be the most beautiful, competing for boyfriends, competing for whatever it is. And I just feel like women need to work together and stop trying to compete with each other. I mean, when I launched Untitled Magazine, Untitled Space, it was really a question of wanting to collaborate with other people, wanting to join forces, wanting to help other people. And sometimes I get bit in the ass with that whole thing because the very people I'm trying to help get competitive with me, and often it's not very pleasant. You know, I've had some pretty unpleasant experiences over the course of my career working with people who, you know, despite my efforts to even like maybe we are working together, and sometimes it has sort of turned on me and been revealed to me that like this person not only is not my friend, they can't even work in a professional way because they're backstabbing me as we're trying to, as I'm trying to help them. And, you know, I think there is a component of not everybody can work well with other people. Some people really are best off just working on their own. And I think that there's a lot of extremely competitive people out there that, you know, it's interesting. I said this to an artist the other day. One of my artists actually was attacked on Instagram over posts that she made, and people started lashing out at her. And I said, you know, people that are attacking you, they're just insecure and sort of trying to, you know, it's their problem. If they're attacking you on Instagram about a picture that you posted, and I saw the photo and I took one look at it and said, these are people that have their own insecurities, that they just, for whatever reason, instead of addressing their own insecurities and their own problems, they're lashing out at you, they're projecting all their problems onto you and turning you into the bad guy. Right. Instead of looking at themselves and understanding that maybe they need to work a little bit more on some of their own issues, because otherwise, why would they respond that way? Right. And I think if there's certain things that trigger people to behave in negative ways or attack other people, it's really important for themselves to take a look at themselves and say, wait a second, am I the problem? You know, I mean, I can only do like the best I can do. I try to also, I wish I could like have, you know, way more opportunities for more people. I wish that I had more time for my own artwork. I wish many things, but at the end of the day, we all have our own, you know, shortfalls and our own abilities. And I just try to like, I try to just, you know, not be too hard on myself. And it's really important to not also take things personally. Like if somebody starts attacking you, the first thing you need to take a look at is, maybe they've got some problems they need to deal with first, you know, and maybe I should not take this personally. I need to look at like, what problems is this person going through? And it doesn't mean I ever have to work with them again. I mean, I do have my own personal sort of like, once somebody is really nasty and horrible to me, I tend to shut them out and it's done and they're gone and I will never work with them again. And that's just my own personal rule. I don't give people second chances. I don't have time.
You had told me a story. Just tell the story so the audience hears this one. You had brought someone into your art gallery, was helping them. They were newcomers, selling their work, sold like 4 pieces. And what did she call you?
I can't even say the word. It's so nasty. This person came in. She was an artist I was working with who I exhibited. I sold 4 of her artworks and she came in. I'm a very organized businesswoman. You have to be. We have contracts with all of our artists, like just like going over terms of sales. If we sell their artwork, there's a certain amount of time where we have to review all the accounting. We have to get the money in. We have to make sure that like, you know, we address various like forms that may be required, like have they provided us with their W-9? How do we have like all of our, you know, checks in place before we can make payments to them? And there's a process that every accounting department goes through. I'm a business and my gallery is business, just like any other business. There's a payment process. And this girl came in, you know, a couple weeks after we sold the art, but our terms are normally 30 days. And she started screaming and yelling, went crazy on us. Where's my money? I want my money, yelling and screaming. The gallery was open to the public. Like there were people walking in, looking at artwork. And this crazy woman came in screaming and yelling, demanding her money when we literally just sold these pieces. It was still in the accounting process of getting all the paperwork sorted so that we could even make the payment to her. Collectors do have a certain amount of time between the artwork being sold and for it being packaged and shipped for them to actually return it. And these are part of terms that we have with various vendors that we work with, where we have to allow like a 7-day return policy, things like that. So we can't pay artists the day we make the sale. It just doesn't work like that. Like any business, you have a certain time frame in which your vendors, you know, and at the end of the day, artists probably would hate this word, but the fact is that they are supplying inventory to a business, and then that business is processing and selling that, and payments have to be done in a business-like manner at a certain time frame when those funds can officially be available to be dispersed. In any case, my terms are very, very narrow, like very quick. I don't like to make artists wait for their money, but this girl went crazy on me and
said, see you next Tuesday.
Started screaming and yelling. She came in, she told my staff that I was a CUNT and that they should all quit, and that I was, you know, and what are you going to do? I'm like, you know, we caught her on video because we have security cameras in the gallery. The whole thing was videoed. And it was extremely offensive. So I left and she kept going and she started harassing my staff, started threatening them. And it was really bad. I mean, we were considering whether we needed to pursue legal action against this woman because it was terrifying to everybody that worked there. But I hate to say it, this is not a one-off occurrence. This sort of thing happens often where, I have to deal with a lot of really unprofessional people that can get really nasty. And unfortunately, there are people that were provided clear and concise contracts and they probably never even read their contract. I don't know. I mean, I'm an artist, but I also ran a photography business on an international scale in 3 countries over like 15 years before I opened the gallery. So I read every contract I ever, you know, like that's part of your job is to read your contracts. Right?
Real quick thing, you were sexually harassed during your career. You don't have to give details, but you were sexually harassed.
Was I sexually harassed? Yes, absolutely. Several, you know, times. I mean, I think a lot of women in creative positions are often put in uncomfortable situations because there's a big gray area in the fashion industry, for example, when you're on photo shoots. A lot of people are, you know, you do trips, you do jobs, or you go away for an island for a week and you're on a job and everybody's hanging out together and having dinner together and having drinks after work together. And there's this weird space. And also expectation even of having dinner with clients, expectation of being social with people you're working with. And, you know, outside of, you know, the gallery world is obviously very social. I've never actually been sexually harassed in the art gallery environment. It was mainly working as a fashion photographer. And prior to that, when I was a lot younger, in my early 20s, when I was modeling. And, you know, it is one of those things. I mean, I had an agent in a foreign country who, you know, was very aggressive. I was in Italy on my own. And, you know, you're in this position where you're like, you know no one to turn to. It can be very a difficult thing to go through. It mainly, I would say almost all the incidences that I dealt with sexual harassment was when I was in a very vulnerable position in a foreign country, you know, where and where I think people are aware of that. Like they see, oh, look at this American girl and she's here on her own in Paris, or she's here on her own in Italy, and let's take advantage of this situation, because what is she going to do about it, you know?
Where's she going to go? That's really great. That's great that exists. I like that a lot of your charitable work from art proceeds go to like Planned Parenthood, ERA Coalition, or ACLU, which are all under attack and desperately need help. So that's really good.
Thank you. I mean, you know, I have made it like a point with my artwork and with overall just all the projects that we do, to try to support other women groups and to do what I can to like give back to the community. I mean, I think it is one of those things. It's just really important to, you know, try to contribute, even if, you know, a lot of those fundraising initiatives, I mean, you know, the artist, like you're 100% donating, or you're creating productions where it's like really trying to not just raise money, but also shed light on what they're doing and the platforms that they're promoting. And I think it's just really important to be involved in those sort of things.
You're not just involved, you're making it happen. So let's talk about, you had an exhibition, and it was basically on the night of the shutdown, the eve of the shutdown. Tell me about that and the next day and what you chose to do and how you've handled it since.
You know, I can't even tell you. It was so sort of overwhelming, because I had been working on my exhibit, The Labyrinth, for about a month. It's a pretty big production. I built a maze inside the gallery where you experience, it's a immersive installation and exhibit where you go into the gallery, and I actually had contractors come in and build walls throughout the space where you walk through a maze to experience the artwork. And it's a concept that for years I had been wanting to do. And basically, you know, we got everything done and ready, and the opening was like literally on the eve of all the COVID-19 shutdowns. And the next day after the opening, we had to close the gallery. So technically speaking, that exhibit is sort of on pause. We had to close the gallery the day after the opening, and as soon as they let people reopen, galleries and businesses reopen in New York City, my plan is to open it back up and hopefully at least have it live for a month. I mean, you know, because of the circumstances of the whole COVID-19 shutdown, obviously we don't really want to have another big opening anytime soon. And I'm sure that there's going to be a gradual sort of like people getting re-socializing, and, you know, events will probably be sort of encouraged not to happen right away. So I think when they do allow businesses to sort of reopen, it will be probably most likely we'll keep that exhibit live for like a month or so until it's safe to have another opening and event, because obviously, you know, that will take a little bit more time for people to be prepared to do that sort of thing. You know, it's all a shame what's going on with, you know, I feel, you know, it's heartbreaking the amount of people that are affected by this, not only people that are sick in the hospital or, you know, losing their lives or that of family members and friends. But aside from that, I think that, you know, it's heartbreaking the amount of businesses and people personally affected, you know, facing bankruptcy, facing, you know, losing their entire life savings that they spent, you know, their entire lives working towards building a business or having their own restaurant or doing what they're doing. And many of those will never reopen because people will just have run out of money. And I think that I don't want to emphasize too much the economical situation, but at the same time, it really, as a business owner, it's really, really draining and stressful because there is this big sort of like black hole of, am I ever going to be able to go back to even what I had like a month ago? Am I ever going to be able to run the gallery again? Like, will I be able to even afford to have that business anymore? Those are all things that we're going to have to wait and see. I think myself as well as many, many people are going to have to significantly change their lives after this because of all of the financial stress and drain it has been on us, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, the Wall Street Journal had said many times accurately that I think 35 to 40% of the country was not able to handle a $400 emergency in their life. A pandemic and losing your job far surpasses $400. Unemployment only goes so far. Insurance runs out. You have a downward spiral. I'm not going to be a finance guy here, but the death of people is the worst horrible tragedy. The people dying from this and their families suffering. But then there's stage two, which much less, but still devastating, is what's going to happen when there's no money? No money to get a job, no money to buy stuff, no money anywhere.
I mean, I think, you know, I know that there is this movement, and I don't want to get into too much of my own personal opinions about this, but at the end of the day, you know, I understand why the shutdowns are necessary, particularly in places like New York City. But I do think that there's also a matter of, you know, implementing like the masks and the gloves and being able to say, okay, there must be safe conditions that people can work in environments where you have small offices of less than 20 people or 10 people, you know, where these people should be able to go back to work. And maybe it's a matter of everybody having to wear masks and gloves in the office. I don't really know. But at the end of the day, there are safety measures that could be implemented to prevent, you know, excessive spread of the virus, even in working environments, as long as people were like able to enforce those things. And I think that perhaps a shutdown was necessary for people to take it seriously enough to, you know, then be able to implement such extreme measures in a workplace. Because I think if they had just said straight away, everybody has to wear masks and gloves at the office, nobody would have wanted to do it. But now with the circumstances, people really understand how serious it is. And if and when we go back to work, hopefully we can integrate back into the work scenario with, you know, some safety measures. And I think that should, I mean, in my opinion, I think that they need to get people back to work like as soon as possible.
You can't have an indefinite quarantine because
no.
People run out of money to pay electric bills and get food and have water. And then
listen, people are going to become suicidal. Like, what's better? You know, like a lot of people are facing, like, am I going to be homeless next year?
Right.
You know, I don't think that people can sustain like the trauma that they're being put through without any livelihood and all of their means of making a living cut off, you know? So at the end of the day, do we want mass suicides, or you know, you have to just look at the circumstances that people are going to start, you know, a month or two, fine. It goes longer than that, we're going to start seeing a really, really significant rise in like really sad situations. And it's not going to be just about the virus. It's going to be effects of the quarantine.
Yeah, it'll be the purge eventually if they keep this. All right, let's talk about happy stuff. New Initiatives Gallery. What is going on there?
Sorry?
New Initiatives Gallery.
Oh, right. New initiatives with the gallery. Well, you know, due to COVID-19 and the shutdown, we have had to really rethink how we're presenting artwork because people can't just walk into the gallery anymore. So we have launched an online viewing room where it's a virtual online experience gallery where people can view the artwork and purchase it online. We have sort of set that up where it's in collaboration. We have an e-commerce platform through Artsy. So we're partners with them. So basically we created our viewing room where you can go and experience the artwork, learn about the artists, like, you know, and also if you wanted to just have it, you can buy it and have it shipped to you. We have had a few people, surprisingly, because I didn't really expect it, but we fortunately have had a few people buy art that they're having it, you know, just shipped to their home. And I mean, even that takes a long time though, because we don't have a staff to pack it. So, you know, everybody has to be patient. Even things like that, like people don't think like the amount of people that it takes just to, you know, get packing supplies, and shipping is not always an easy solution.
Companies and then, you know,
yeah,
you're not sending it.
Exactly. But we have launched this online viewing room, and I'm really excited about that.
What is that called?
And then we also are launching. Sorry.
What's that called? So if someone wants to jump in, how do they go?
So if you go to our website, you can just click on the top browser of the website at the Untitled space, which is untitled-space.com. You can click on viewing room, and that just takes you into the virtual gallery experiences that you can see. So right at the moment we have 2 up, and we have another one launching this week. And we have an open call at the moment for our first online exhibit, which, yeah, so usually we do once or twice a year, we'll do an open call for a group show, usually our summer group show. We do an open call and we invite artists to submit their work. And then every December we do a open call for artists to submit their work for a solo show for the following year. And, you know, usually we get a really great response from those open calls because a lot of artists are always looking for new opportunities with galleries. And it's a great way for artists to kind of show us their work and have it like presented in relation to like, you know, what we're looking for. So we're doing an open call at the moment for an online solo show that will be taking place over the summer. And it's our first one online, but so far we've been getting a really good response to it. I think that artists are happy to have any opportunities out there. And we, aside from the online viewing room, are doing a hardcover book for the exhibit. So people will actually get like a book of,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So because with the publishing, you know, the magazine, I have all the platforms to also publish art books. So that's something that we've been doing the last year. We've been doing a lot more hardcover art catalogs and exhibit books, like kind of little mini coffee table books of our exhibits. And I think that, you know, particularly for fans of the artists that can't afford to buy the artwork, buying a book on the artist is great way to kind of take something home with them.
Next best thing.
Yeah.
Now, given that you never stop and you do have unlimited hours aside from the sleep, something about an online magazine. You have your magazine and you're doing what with it? We talked earlier about the magazine online.
Untitled magazine?
Yeah, is that what we were talking about? Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, we still have Untitled magazine going, of course. And we normally do at least 1 or 2 print issues a year with that. And we are hoping to work on a new print edition. It was supposed to get started in production already, but it's been put on pause because we don't have an office or staff. And unfortunately, as much as I would love for everybody to be able to work at their full capacity remotely, I find that that's just often not the case. I think that from a productivity standpoint, we have seen like, you know, a lot of people just can't get motivated to work from home. So productivity has gone way down. And at the moment, I'm just trying to like, you know, if we publish 1 or 2 articles a week, I'm happy. I'm just like, okay, it is what it is. I just can't like, you know, I can't stress out about it. And you know, at the end of the day, this is actually giving me a lot of time to do things that I have been wanting to do for a long time. So on my back burner for like the last 10 years, I have been planning to do a hardcover book about all the different portraits that I've photographed over the years, because I have photographed over the course of my career as a photographer, everyone from Amy Winehouse to Colin Farrell to Alicia Keys to Jimmy Fallon, Brooke Shields. I mean, you name it, right? Hundreds and hundreds of celebrities.
A lot of them. It's not.
Sorry?
You have interviews as well.
Yes. So
which is insane.
all the, exactly. I actually have interviewed the vast percentage of them. My very first celebrity interview and photo shoot was with Molly Ringwald in 1994.
Oh, that's right.
So that was kind of, it was maybe 90, yeah, it was 94. That was the first, that got my foot in the door as an editorial photographer, because at the time I was, you know, just getting started as a photographer. And, you know, I started studying photography when I was 15, and I had been testing for modeling agencies and stuff. And I got an opportunity to photograph Molly, and I pitched it to a magazine from London and said, I can photograph and interview Molly Ringwald. And they said, let's do it. And that was like one of my first published shoots. So
that's incredible.
That was, and then the magazine, because I was able to get somebody of that caliber and they really liked what we did, after that, they made me a contributing editor. And I continued working with them for several years, producing a number of photo shoots and fashion shoots.
Which magazine was this for that you picked?
It's no longer active. This was in the early 90s. They were called Don't Tell It. It was a British magazine, kind of like Dazed and Confused.
Okay.
Very similar aesthetic to Dazed or ID. Indie magazine. In any case, I was their sort of editor at large, New York editor for several years, kind of in the mid 90s.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And once you did that, that really, like, you had always wanted to be a photographer, but how was the aspect of interviewing, like, you know, I'm kind of doing now? Did that appeal to you, or was it more just print?
You know, I always loved interviewing people. I mean, I think it's so, I find that I have learned so much over the years interviewing people. It really is a constant sort of source of inspiration, and the stories that you are confronted with sometimes. I mean, I've interviewed, like, you know, I'm trying to think of some like really powerful ones. There was this actor, Michael, oh my God, I can't remember his last name. In any case, he was not only homeless at one stage, he was addicted to crack. And he was like this incredibly famous actor who, you know, I mean, you just get these stories where you're just like, oh my God, what you've been through. I can't believe that, like, you are the successful person you are today and you managed to get through all that and be where you're at. I interviewed Brooke Candy, who had been homeless and a stripper, and, you know, really had just gone from one extreme to the other with her career. I mean, some of these sort of powerful and, like, you know, emotional stories that, you know, you are able to talk to these people about, like, kind of what got them through their hardship. I find this to be very, very inspirational. And then there's also just everybody, so many people that have experienced such different walks of life and different opportunities and different ways of looking at things. Interestingly, you know, I find some of my favorite subjects to interview are often British, because they are incredibly witty and often have, like, such a fun turn of phrase, and very well educated overall. Like, I'm always super impressed with, like, all the English actors and musicians that I interview. They'll be reciting, like, Plato and Aristotle, and you're like, wow.
You're like Googling it going, what is he talking about? That's amazing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is interesting, but I mean, the British are very good at the classics, you know, and definitely very eloquent. So it's a great combination, right?
Okay.
And I think there is something dashing about that sort of, I don't know, there's always that appeal of, like, the grass is greener, that foreign, you know, somebody foreign who's a little bit different, they can it adds to their mystery.
Absolutely. You know, if we're all brunettes, you look at a blonde. You're all blondes, you look at the brunette.
Yeah.
Stuff that catches the
Yeah.
eye. I want to wrap up a couple of quick things. I love that you've turned art into activism, art into therapy. You've done so much for so many people, bringing together. I think you have become your childhood hero. Indira, you are Wonder Woman. You have become
Wow.
everyday Wonder Woman. Forget Gal, whatever her name is. real quickly, I want to say, are you still hitting vintage shops?
Am I what?
Going to vintage shops.
Oh, vintage shops. Vintage shops.
Remember you went to them, I read an interview that you were hitting vintage shops and you loved it and whatever's closet.
Oh yeah. I mean, absolutely. Who, I mean, not right now because everything's closed, but
Yeah.
but for particularly for like my installation work as an artist, I often create these environments, and so it's a lot of fun to go and check out all the vintage things. And I mean, you wouldn't believe the stuff that you can buy for $10 at the Salvation Army in New York City is kind of awesome. So I've never really been a big retail shopper ever. I very rarely go. I don't really like buying retail. Maybe that's from working in the fashion industry for a really long time. I tend to want to find those like unique things. And also even for clothing, I believe in sustainable clothing. So this is one thing a lot of people don't probably know about me. I have been wearing sustainable fashion for the last 5 years.
Whoa.
I have not bought anything new in the last 5 years, aside from like unnecessary undergarments or whatever. But for the most part, I believe in recycled clothing. So there's so many platforms like the Real and whatever, or even just wearing a sample from a designer where it's from their showroom, and obviously that is given out for every photo shoot and to lots of different people to wear. And then aside from that, I buy a lot of clothing that is in the recycle market through like secondhand, because I think it's really important to not be like constantly promoting production of more and more garments that we really don't need. I'm totally fine with shopping in my own closet, or buying something that somebody wore or purchased once. And I mean, you wouldn't believe how often you can go. I mean, I always tell all my friends, like, seriously, stop buying retail, go and buy at the Real, because you can literally buy a dress for $15 and you'll get it. It'll still have the tags on it because people buy clothes and never wear them.
Right.
And then they don't know what to do with them. So, I think that resale market is really incredible. And I definitely am very supportive of like sustainable fashion.
I'm very happy to hear that. And yeah, there's too many closets that are filled and nothing's used. I remember seeing in a magazine, a ladies magazine, it said, if you haven't worn it in a year, give it away. And I thought, oh my God, how much do you have if you have items you haven't worn in a year? I have my items. I know what I like. I wear it. It's done. If something hadn't been worn for a year.
I think a lot of women have that spontaneous sort of like, oh, buy. I mean, I'm gender stereotyping now, but I think there is a component of like,
it is kind of
I think there's a lot of
proven.
pressure on women more so than men to constantly have a new look and, to be dressed in a, certain sort of way. And being from a fashion background, I have to say I really do enjoy clothes and fashion. So I have found the best way for me to sort of satisfy my desire to have something different or new to wear is, buying the sort of sustainable stuff. At the end of the day, though, it's true. I mean, it's very common to buy things and never wear them. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've bought some crazy outfit that just never ended up like seeing the light of day. Although I keep them all, or I resell them. I do tend to resell my stuff, recycle it. But I'll give it a couple years. If I haven't worn it in a few years, then I'll sell it.
I haven't worn it in a decade. By then, it's back in fashion. All right, I just want to
You'd
say.
be surprised.
Oh, I can imagine what your closet is, given your international travels. Okay, let me try to get this right. My handwriting. Women across America are angry, and artists are angry. I can't even read it. Are angry too, or something like that. You had a gallery showcase, and one woman wrote something. Alison Provax. And I think this encapsulates everything perfectly. It was just simply a white canvas with tiny black letters, and it was about women. And it said, I thought it would be different by now. If that doesn't represent everything, we thought we would have flying cars and jetpacks. We don't have equal pay for women. I agree with her. I thought it would be different by now. And I'm glad you're on the team, the right team. And
thank you.
Doing everything you're doing. And then to make my day, if it's okay, can you say who you are, a little bit about yourself, and then say, and you're watching ChanceTV?
Oh, well, my name is Indira Cesarine, and I am an artist, photographer, gallery owner, magazine publisher, journalist. I don't know what else. That's a couple of my multi-hyphenated, career, and we are on Chance TV.
I can't thank you enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll hit record on this, pop it in, I'll get everything to you, and I'll be in contact shortly.
Okay, great. Yay.
Thank you so much. You're amazing. Bye-bye.
Bye.